cool, boring. Like I literally had a cornfield behind my house and stuff like that. So I think like everyone always asks me like, why is all these bands coming out of there? I'm like, there's
Yeah.
literally nothing else to do, man. Hey, what's up?
What's up, Jeremy? How are you, man?
I'm so good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I appreciate you doing this. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah, no worries. Sorry, I just moved into a new house a little bit ago, so still kind of getting set up.
Oh, all good. What is that in the middle of the room there? It looks like a pole.
Yeah, this is in my basement,
Oh.
so we're gonna redo this space down here, but for now it's just chilling.
That's cool. Rad, man. Well, my name is Adam, and this is a podcast about you and your journey in music. And obviously, we'll talk about the new record.
Cool, awesome.
Sweet. So first off, are you born and raised in Dayton, Ohio?
Yeah, 100%. I lived there till I was like 21 or 22, something like that. So
Okay. What's crazy is when I saw that, my mom was 9 months pregnant with me, and my dad, they both lived in Dayton, Ohio. My dad worked for a company called NCR. I don't even know if it's still there.
yeah, National Cash Register.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think they're in Atlanta now. Yeah.
Okay, so it used to be in Dayton. He worked there, and they opened an office in San Diego in California, and they're like, who wants to go? And my dad had no idea where San Diego was. He looked on the map. He's like, well, that's on the coast and far from here. Let's go for it. And so they moved to San Diego, and my mom was 9 months pregnant. So I was born and raised in San Diego, but I was like
You
this
hit the
close,
freaking lottery.
this
Yeah.
close to being raised in Dayton, Ohio.
It would have been a very different outcome, trust me. All we wanted to do is get out of there and get to the coast. So
Well, what was it like growing up there?
it was cool, boring. Like I literally had a cornfield behind my house and stuff like that. So I think like everyone always asks me like, why is all these bands coming out of there? I'm like, there's
Yeah.
literally nothing else to do, man. There's nothing else to do. So
But there's a lot of talent. I mean, there's nothing else to do in
yeah.
so many other places in the world. But you guys are breeding amazing musicians there.
Yeah, and I think we had a good local community across like, where we were at in Dayton and Columbus and stuff like that. There was a bunch of cool people that all were just trying to help each other out. So that kind of helped too. Like
That,
Caleb Shomo from Beartooth, he actually got me this shirt, but
oh,
those guys
really?
were like right down the road. Yeah.
And you're touring with them coming up, aren't you?
We just did. So we just got off tour with them over
Oh,
the
okay.
last month. So yeah.
And you're doing a tour in August? Or am I
Yeah, we're
tripping?
doing a
Okay.
it's for both of our zombie EPs. We're gonna play both of those. So
Oh, cool. Okay. Very cool. That's rad. So you just got off tour with Beartooth, but yeah, I knew they're from Dayton as well. And I just interviewed another band that had some tie to Dayton. I can't recall off the top of my head, but yeah, a lot of talent coming out of there.
Hawthorne Heights, that was the big one when we were growing up. Those guys were from there.
Oh
So
yeah. Okay. It wasn't them, but I do remember that as well.
cool.
Sweet. So a lot of music. Were you born and raised in a musical household at all?
Yeah, my dad was very into Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Supertramp and all that kind of stuff. So he plays keyboards. He's like a really good keyboard player, and he kind of fiddled around with the guitar. So I guess I got a guitar pretty young, like 10 or 11, something like that.
Was
So
it
it
something
was
you
always just
asked
part of it.
for, or was your dad like, "Oh, you should pick this up"?
Maybe both. My grandpa also played like bluegrass guitar, so
Oh, cool.
it just was a normal part of life to be holding one and playing around and stuff. So but he did make me get an acoustic for like a year when I was like 10 to learn fundamentals and stuff like that. So
Sure. Were you listening to heavier music at that time, or no?
I guess I kind of got into stuff with like Korn
Mhm.
and Limp Bizkit and Blink-182, just rock radio stuff pretty
Sure.
much. And
So you were
um
looking for the distortion and
oh
the
yeah,
electric.
yeah.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, I need to be playing this Korn stuff. I don't know if the acoustic's gonna get us there, man.
Sure. Did your dad teach you guitar chords or anything like that, or did you take lessons?
Yeah, I did take lessons. I took a few years of lessons, which when we first started Prada, I didn't really see a huge connection there because it was so different than what we
Mhm.
were doing. But now, as time has gone on, there's a lot of fundamentals I picked up from there that I'm like, I'm glad I did that stuff.
Like theory wise, or?
No, I'm really bad with theory, but maybe just like fundamentals of like how to use your hands and stuff like
Oh,
that, you
sure.
know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And did you like from learning guitar, were you writing songs early on? Did you join a band pretty quickly, or where were you at as far as
Yeah,
that went?
my little brother is a drummer, and then my cousin was a guitar player, and so we kind of always had bands since we were like kids, you know,
Oh,
teenagers, and we would play birthday parties and stuff. So I think almost everybody in the Devil Wears Prada was in another band locally when we started this one. It was just kind of like nobody was doing this exact type of stuff, and all of us were in these other bands and kind of came into this one. But I think literally everyone was in a different band at the time that they joined
oh wow.
Prada. So
Was your
yeah.
brother, or does your brother still play?
No, he's like a huge nerd. He's like a PhD
Oh
dude.
wow.
So yeah. But
Okay.
yeah,
He's doing
but
well
I don't
for
think he
himself.
probably hasn't played. I don't think he's played drums like 10 years probably.
Oh,
So.
I don't know if maybe you'd have him come on the record and play.
No, my God, yeah, he can. I don't know if he could play a double kick pedal. So I'll have
That's a
to
good
ask
point.
him.
I have him come in and just hit a snare drum.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, okay, you were in another band. Was you were in a band with your brother? Was that the band you were in when you joined Prada?
Yeah, he had quit by then. He was like doing, I think he was playing in like marching band and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
we just had some other local people. And then I was only singing in that band, so I wasn't playing guitar. I kind of
Oh,
like lied about knowing how to play like metal guitar and stuff when I joined. Yeah, I had played Metallica and stuff, but I didn't know how to do anything. So I was like, oh yeah, man, I can play all this stuff.
I
Let
got
me
it.
in. So
Sure. Oh wow. When did you learn to sing, or when was that? Because you sing the clean parts of all
hmm
the Prada records. So is that something that you were interested in early on as well? Like, did you do chorus or choir or anything like that?
yeah, I did. I guess when I was younger, just playing guitar with my dad and stuff, he'd be like, "Oh, you know, you should sing like this Stain song or something like that. Like you have a good voice." And I was kind of just like, whatever. But I was in theater, and I was more on the drama side of it in high school, and then just got pushed towards the musicals, and then they were like, "Oh, you're really good. You should be in the choir." But I definitely wasn't like the best singer at my school, probably not even like top 10. So I never thought it would be a career. Like even
Mm.
when I joined the band, I wasn't even singing. Our old keyboard player had been singing some stuff, and a couple of the guys were like, "Oh, dude, we forgot you were in that other band. You were a singer. You should sing." Like, okay, so
Oh, so that's kind of how you ended up landing into
yeah,
that role. Interesting.
yeah. It was very like nonchalant. It's not like we had a plan for anything really.
Right. So you all didn't go to high school or anything together, or did you?
No, me and our old bass player went to high school together, and we were really really good friends. Like we still talk like every day, even though he's not in the band anymore. But
Mhm.
so Mike, our singer, we all went to like basically competing high schools in the Dayton area.
Okay, so you're
Um,
all aware of each other in the same
yeah,
ish.
kind of.
Okay.
And we just had a really strong scene that we kind of fell into that was existing before us and kind of continued after us, of just like, you know, local hardcore bands and pop punk bands and stuff like that. It was a very eclectic scene. So
Hmm.
I think that helped us where we could just kind of jump on shows and stuff all the time, you know.
Hmm. Is that something? I mean, just because San Diego had a cool scene too when I was growing up. You're a little like a little bit younger than me. I just based off what I learned on the internet.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like is that lost? I mean, I don't know. I feel like even I moved to Nashville recently, but in San Diego prior to the pandemic, I don't remember there being a lot of activity in the scene there anymore. Like, is that
I
something that
think,
you see that still?
you know, for like about 10 years, I think things kind of fell off. Like, you know, it would be really hard to find local bands to play on shows just because there wasn't really a strong scene and stuff like that. And then a couple of years ago, I think it was probably a lot of these bands like say Knock Loose and
Yeah. Oh, I love that band.
you know, all that kind of community of new hardcore bands really has brought it back. And now you can see just a huge scene almost everywhere now. So it's kind
Okay.
of back in a cool way, which is awesome.
That
It's
is
like,
cool because like I felt like it just kind of got lost. I'm like, wow, like that was such a cool, important part of my life growing up and going to shows and seeing these bands. We had a handful of bands from San Diego that ended up doing really well. Like Pierce the Veil was I mean, they came
yeah,
out of there, and a lot of
great friends of mine. Yeah,
yeah,
great
and
friends of
Lower
mine.
Definition was a band out of there. We had this
Yeah,
little scene that that was happening when I was growing.
Underminded, I think, was
Underminded, yeah,
Underminded. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. It's what's Nick in now?
Yeah, Sleeping with
Sleeping with
Sirens.
Sirens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
okay.
love Nick. Yeah,
Yeah, that band was rad. Underminded. They should get back
yeah,
together and do like a reunion.
yeah. Their drummer plays in Flames now too. He actually filled in for us on a tour last year, Tanner. So it's just a
Oh, because
very
Mike was in the band.
incestuous.
Oh, but I guess when they got signed, he left. Because in the early
Yeah.
version of Underminded, it was Mike from Pierce the Veil. Mike Fuentes played
Oh,
drums.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
San
and
Diego
so
is a small town out there,
oh
man.
yeah, and then when they were both getting signed at the same time, Underminded and well, they were called what the hell are they called? Oh, Early Times. They're called
Oh, okay.
Pierce the
Okay.
Veil was called Early Times, and they were getting signed at the same time. And Mike was like, "Well, I'm going to play with my brother," so
Sure,
he
sure.
went and then they became Before Today and then Pierce the Veil. But yeah, it was such a cool scene growing up and seeing those bands play like these really small rooms, and then that's what I was wondering. Like, is there this scene that's kind of doing that? But it sounds like it's back, which is cool.
I think it is back, like there's a bunch of like video sites and stuff you can watch things that I'll occasionally get on there, it's like, man, this is crazy.
That's
So it's
awesome.
cool.
Rad. So when do you guys start the band? Because they were kind of going, right? From what I read, uh, Devil Wears Prada had a show or one show before you joined, right? Or
Yeah,
something was
I
happening
like
there.
went to the practice and they had maybe, let's say, 4 or 5 songs put
Okay.
together. And so when I jumped in, they just had one guitar player, so I kind of wrote the other side of the guitars, let's say, and then we wrote some new stuff together. And then they had a show. I had homecoming. That's how long ago this was. So I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to jump on the first show. And I came in on the second show, and then our bass player came in, I think, on the third or fourth show. So it
And
was
that was your really good friend who you went to
yeah,
high
yeah.
school
I
with.
brought him in. I was like, "Yo, you need to join this band, man. These guys are cool." He's like, "I don't like that kind of music." He only liked like punk and Black Flag and stuff like that. So I had to kind of drag him in.
Oh, that's funny. That's cool though.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know if this is kind of an off the wall question, but I'm just curious because I've talked to a lot of artists that grew up through, the church and the Christian music scene. And they were kind of not allowed to listen to certain music. And it sounds like your dad was like not pushing it, but
Oh
like
yeah.
cool with it.
I'm
Like,
My parents really didn't care. As long as I was like not, in trouble, they didn't really care about much of anything.
okay,
So
that's
it's like, do
cool.
whatever you want.
Rad. Okay, I was just curious. Yeah, because it sounded like if you're listening to Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff, that you are definitely allowed to. We were exposed to that music.
Yeah, oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I That was kind of like weird when we did first make the band because, everyone has their own idea about whatever anything is, especially with like religion and stuff. So you'd
Sure.
have people just like yelling stuff at you or say, hey, that's not Christian, that's not this or that or whatever. And I was like, okay. I don't know. I
Right.
literally don't know you, dude. So
Okay.
just kinda, yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. When did the band? So you jumped in after that first show. That's funny that
Mhm.
the story of you not going for homecoming isn't something that they would write up.
So funny, man. Yeah.
Then you join. When does the band, like, what's the first kind of big moment for you guys, or when does stuff start to take off a little bit?
We had a really interesting series of events happen where we played this show kind of near us in Richmond, Indiana, and there was a band opening, or I think we were opening for this band, and they were kind of like a local hardcore band. And their drummer was this guy, Joey Sturgis, and he had been doing just little demo recordings for them. And he kind of handed us this demo CD and was like, hey, you guys you guys are cool. You should do a
Mhm.
demo with me. And there's just something about the way this dude spoke. He was very approachable, just very chill. And so we were like, okay, cool. So we kind of rallied up some cash and went and made a demo with him. And then we used that to kind of send it out to a bunch of labels. And again, just one of these weird situations, right place, right time. This guy, Craig, who had Ryze Records, the label, was really ambitious and was one of the few people who was like really committed to signing kids, like just because he could sort of see this organic connection between younger bands and their fan bases. And so he's like, your Myspace is like blowing up. This is cool. I love the demo. You guys should go turn this into a record and sign a record deal. So we did, and we went back to that guy, Joey. And again, it's just a combination of like, these dudes that I was in the band with happened to be really talented. We had a really good local infrastructure. And this guy, Joey, was so good at recording, like so much better than everybody else doing local stuff with really cheap, crappy gear. Like, like your podcast stuff is probably nicer than what we were tracking with. And he had a really good ear. And so that kind of just, exploded everything from there. So it was just right place, right time.
So it sounds like you had obviously some fans and stuff happening on MySpace.
Yeah, we had our old drummer was really good, like marketing and just, blowing up the band on there and training shows and stuff. And we had a good work ethic. I mean, we weren't making any money from it, but we practiced like 5 days a week and play shows every weekend, no matter how many people were there. So it was just, eventually something's going to stick if you work that hard at something.
Right. Like, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, with getting on Ryze Records, were they, I mean, a mass, I'm trying to remember when you would have signed with them. That had to be what?
It was like 2005, I think, 2006. And
did they really have a pretty big, I mean, they've released so many huge, records. That's what I was curious to know.
At the time, not really. It was like, I think there were like 4 bands on there at the time. It was Fear Before the March of Flames, Drop Dead Gorgeous, and a couple other more rock kind of acts. And so, I mean, if we would have gotten a million other offers, we probably would have taken one of them instead. But it just so happened, like, Craig was super aggressive and like, hey, no, really, you guys should sign. Let's do it tomorrow. I'll pay for your record. And we're like, cool. So
wow, that's crazy. Yeah, just to see how far that label has come. I mean, I know you're not with them anymore, and you're on an incredible label at this point. But I know just to see how, to hear that there's only 4 or 5 bands on the label, and then they've put out, records with Distillers and AFI and all these huge bands.
Well, that was the cool thing was Craig was so smart. He used, these bands that may not have been his. I don't even want to say he loved all the stuff that we did. He was literally still is one of our biggest supporters, but he would use these things were not exactly his wheelhouse, but that fans were connecting to just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, fund bigger projects. And so by the time he had made it into this huge kind of like scene label, he could then do a bunch of other artists that he never would have been able to sign back then because just didn't have the money for it. That now he's like, yeah, I freaking love Distillers. Let's put out a record. I freaking love this band. Let's put out a record.
Right.
So it's really cool. Like him, and you talk about Pierce Vale, our booking agent, Dave Shapiro. They were one of his only clients when we signed with him. He's from San Diego as well.
Yeah,
so,
I know Dave. I know who he is.
Yeah,
yeah.
So
I don't know him personally, but I know the name. He's definitely a name in San Diego. And
San Diego royalty. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Well, he's like, all those people. They just were very hardworking, passionate, and believed in young artists. So that's how they all have a huge career now, honestly.
That's so cool. Even who you work with now with Solid State, Brandon Eagle. I mean, he was in that with Tooth and Nail and all that early on as well.
Brandon's the same way. Brandon and Craig have very similar personalities where they're like, of course, they're great business people, but they're way more fans of music than even the business side. And if they sign you, they'll be at every show, rocking the heck out, doing whatever. So it's cool.
That's killer. That is so cool. So, okay. So you signed with Ryze. You had that demo, and then would you go re-record it or?
Yeah, we re-recorded it, and then we added maybe like 3 or 4 songs to it, and that was our first album that we kind of launched with.
Wow. And that did obviously really well. And from there, like you guys have put out a ton of records. I don't know, I could spend all day with you talking through all of them, but what would you say, like, what are some kind of key moments that you can remember from those early days that kind of kept the ball going forward for you?
Again, just like we never turned down a single tour. So very early, like one of the first things Dave did for us was get us on a series of shows with Silverstein, and like
Oh, cool.
our singer was in high school still at the time, Mike. So we were like, we can really only do kind of a weekend, and he can kind of, you know, skip school on Friday and Monday, but that's it. So they threw us on like 4 shows of that. And then we did a tour of Chiodos pretty early, and then we kind of just did a lot of touring. And then because of all that touring, Alternative Press was pretty killer early on
Oh
for
yeah,
us.
you got a
So
huge thing from them.
yeah, it was like, I think we did a live band of the year. So it's like a thing you could vote in back then of like, you know, bands for different categories. And so we won their live band of the year, which was huge to us because we were like, we like making records, we like playing shows more. So that's kind of one of those moments I remember just being like, okay, this is really,
And you did
you
a
know,
cover, right?
happening.
Weren't you guys on the cover of
Yeah,
the, which is
yeah.
like
I
the
have it
most
somewhere. I don't
massive
know.
thing ever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that magazine, it was it. That was the
Hmm.
thing. And then obviously the online version. I interviewed John Nolan from Taking Back Sunday a while ago, and he was
Yeah.
telling me like, you know, they had a cover and stuff and like how huge that moment was. And then he remembers but the big moment for his family was like when they got like recognized in like the local paper. Like the local
Oh
paper
yeah.
was like, you know, Taking Back Sunday does something, and his parents are like, yeah, that's cool that you did that one thing, but you're in the you know, the local paper.
Long Island Times or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
so yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I
yeah.
was like, that's so funny.
I think
I
everyone from these towns has that same story where it's like you just never thought it was possible, and who would believe in you? You know, it sounds like a psychotic dream to kind of do it. Yeah, even with an athlete, if you're killing it at college, everyone's like, I could see you going pro, but like no one ever thinks the band's gonna work. So when it, you know, hits those massive levels, it's like it's just kind of cool, you
Oh yeah. I mean, would you guys got signed when you were still in high school? Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
still in high
wow.
school.
So that must have been, what was that moment like? That must have been huge, especially to other kids that you knew in
No,
school
it
or
was only
nothing?
cool to us. No one
Really?
could have cared at all. Yeah, Mike
That's
would always talk
crazy.
about like he would go and play these shows, and you know, there's like 2,000 people there at some uh Silverstein show, and they come back in school and people are like, what's up, loser? And it's like, really, dude?
What?
So funny. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it was more of an alternative scene back then, especially our kind of like metalcore niche. It wasn't very mainstream, so nobody at school really cared at all, you know.
That's crazy. That's so crazy. And okay, so from there, like when did it become like, so you went basically from high school to this is your full-time thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, you know, I guess it was really organic looking back on it now. Everything just kind of seemed to happen as it needed to. So right
Yeah.
when, you know, we started needing to make some money to pay for a crappy apartment, okay, you know, some started
Okay.
coming in. And then another thing I guess was the Warped Tour. Like that
Hmm.
was just, I remember specifically there was one year on Warped Tour where on the side stages were like us, Pierce the Veil, All Time Low, August Burns Red, Bring Me the Horizon, Day to Remember, and all these bands that, like, you know, we were on the side stages, but we all had the biggest crowds of the day.
Right.
And so it
Yeah.
was a very changing of the guard moment where, like, you know, all these guys who are my age now, like mid 30s, we were like 22 then. And you
Hmm.
could feel kind of the shift happening to this new generation. So that was a huge reason that all of us still have a career playing music. It's just building those relationships with people every summer, because you didn't even have to know about like heavy metal. Most of the people going to Warped Tour were not like metalheads or anything like that. It's
Right.
just like normal people, you
And it
know.
was
So
just a
then
thing. It was just the coolest thing to do in the summer because you could see so many bands and from, I mean, they're all in the similar lane of music, but it was like you could see an old band, you could see this new artist, you could see, and it was just the way Kevin Lyman did it was just so brilliant.
it was a genius, and he really he I learned a lot about work ethic from him, because many people would have just stepped back as an investor, but that guy was out there, radio on, move them to
Hmm.
that stage now, you know, totally connected. So you can't let
That's
up. I
cool.
mean, like, you know, especially when you're running a music business, like all of us
Mhm.
are, like it's 99% like strategy and phone calls and stuff like that. Very little like playing music, you know, you get done with the
Mhm.
music. It's like, well, now how are we going to get people to hear it?
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, this could be the best record that no one's ever gonna ever hear.
yeah, yeah. So,
That's wild. Do you? I've only asked this question to one person before, and I just thought of it again, so I'm curious. Do you remember the first time that you guys had to do an encore? And was that
um,
weird? Like, okay, guys, we're gonna have to actually leave the stage and then come back out.
no, I can't remember. No, but it still is. I mean, we literally we're a weird bunch, but we always will be like, if no one asks, we're not gonna do it because there's nothing more cringe than when you're like, okay, I guess the band's done. You're kind of going to get your coat, and then it's like, oh, they're coming back out. Like no one even asked for it. So
Right, right, right. Oh,
you
that's
always have
funny.
to wait for
kind of
everyone to
kind of feel it
do
out.
it. Yeah. So,
Oh, that's cool. So, okay, I want to get to obviously this new record and
mhm.
the EPs that you're touring because you didn't have a chance to, right? I mean, you put out
Sure.
Zombie, and then was that before? Did you write that during the? It was before the pandemic, right?
It was mostly during, so we kind of had the
Okay.
idea for it. I think we were kind of we knew we wanted to do it. We thought about doing it before our last album, and then
Okay.
just
Because
the
you had that.
music was
Sorry, real quick. So the act had came out, and you were just to set the stage here. Where were you when March hits of 2020 and the world shuts down? Like, had you the act was out and you had a chance to promote it, and were you on the road during that, or like tell me
yeah.
where you were
So
prior to that?
I guess what happened was right before we did the act, we kind of had to sit down and we were like, should we? Actually, it was in San Diego. We were on our tour bus in San Diego. We had our whole team there outside of Soma, and they were like, okay, we see two paths. You know, you can redo a zombie EP or you can do a new album. We all feel like you guys should do a new zombie EP, and we were like, no. So we were like very burnt out. We've been, you know, grinding for a decade plus at this point, and I think we kind of just wanted to try something different. And so we just totally hit the drawing board, made the act, put it out. It was the first thing we had done in a really long time that people
Hmm.
really liked, which was cool. So we did a tour on it, and then the next spring we were going to do a tour with We Came as Romans that was going really well. It was really well sold tour, and the new songs were going off, and it was really our first time to play them in front of everybody. And then the shutdown happened, so it's kind
Oh
of like,
wow. Okay.
okay, you know. So then, I mean, I think we probably took a month off and then just started working on the EP, and um, you
So
know,
Zill came together during that kind of time of what's
exactly.
going on. Got you.
So it was kind of like, um, it was weird. Obviously, it was COVID. So I live in Charlotte. Two of the guys live in Kansas City. Mike lives in Milwaukee, and our drummer lives in Pittsburgh. So it's very much like sending stuff back together digitally,
Oh
and
wow.
then all kind of driving, you know, to Kansas because you couldn't really fly. So but I think it's kind of cool. Like it worked out that way because we didn't do a huge like campaign for it. We really just dropped like, hey, a month from now there's going to be a new EP, and so
Uh-huh.
that was really like a hype moment kind of thing. So
That's
I don't
cool.
know.
And
It's kind of scary, but
was it different? Where was that the first time you guys, I would imagine, worked that way too, where you have to
yeah,
kind of
it's
connect in that?
actually, I think it's a lot better. Like, you know, sitting in a room and jamming stuff together can be productive, but it can also be really unproductive. You get kind of brick walls often, and people get frustrated and they're trying to force their ideas in and stuff. So I think working off of a laptop is a little better way. We've done that a lot too. Honestly, our first zombie EP was kind of like that, but
Hmm.
it's I just think for every project everything's different. You know, there's no standard. COVID is just the next thing that happened that changed the way we did it, but then we actually like doing it that way so much that on our new record, we just went and rented an Airbnb for a couple months and just recorded everything but the drums out there, and then we just got a studio for like a week to do the drums in. So
Oh wow. And were all the parts for the new album written like away from each other, similar? Or did
Kind
you
of.
get
So
together in the Airbnb and
we did.
just
We rented a
jam?
couple of them. So we did. John, our keyboard player, wrote most of the music for the album, and so he kind of just cook up a bunch of stuff, send them over, and then we met up. Initially, we met up in Wisconsin for like a month on this kind of lake. No, it wasn't a lake house. It was near the lake, but
Mhm.
and just kind of tracked a bunch of the early singles from that, and then after we went on tour last fall, we spent basically up until Christmas Eve at a house in Palm Springs, just in the desert.
Oh, rad.
And it was cool. It was like we just built a vocal booth in one of the guys' bedrooms, and just, me, especially for doing vocals. Mike and I have been working with John, our keyboard player, for like over 10 years now. So we just have a very organic, like, trust in
Mhm.
him to kind of get those performances out of us, and both of us take direction really well, of like, that one sucked, we're not going to get like offended or anything
No
like
one's, yeah, exactly. No one's gonna get hurt.
that. Yeah, so that, I mean, it was much better doing it that way, because very quickly we could work through ideas, and then they were printed and done. So we did have to drive like a ton of studio equipment stuff out there to the house, but it was
So,
fun.
and those all made the record, like all those takes?
Yeah, the whole record is from those Airbnbs, and then the drums were at a studio,
At a
because you can't
studio.
really just
Wow.
fake it.
So it was Palm Springs. Did you say Milwaukee? Where was the other one?
On Lake Oshkosh in
Okay.
Wisconsin. I don't know,
Wisconsin.
whatever this lake is up there.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Wisconsin,
Winnebago or
Palm
something.
Springs, or where the actual record was recorded in
Yeah,
Airbnbs. That's crazy.
yeah, it was cool. So we did everything there, and then we work out of this studio in Kansas City often. So we
Uh-huh.
rented that for um, a week, and just did all the drums at the end of the record there. So
Okay. Wow. I did see on your Instagram that you posted about the record, and you said it's the best thing that you have done, ever. Which
yeah,
it's, I mean, you
yeah.
said since Dead Throne, but that's it, saying that. I mean, tell me, obviously, you guys put so much work and everything into this album. Like, what were kind of moments that you were like, wow, like this is going to be insane.
I think, every time you make something, you feel like as you're making it that it's good, that it's probably your best stuff. That's part of the
Hmm.
creative process. But
Sure.
then when you reflect on it, if you're really brutally honest with yourself, you can tell if it's something on the top tier stuff you've done, or just something okay.
Hmm.
And songwriting wise, it's just light years ahead, like, of anything that we've done. Just, John is such a crazy songwriter. And the other thing is that him and Mike, the honesty that they brought from a kind of mental health perspective, is just so raw. And I think, especially, how old are you? Can't
I'm
remember if you said.
37.
Yeah, so I'm 34. There's this weird feeling in your mid 30s when you have all of these past traumas that really define your existence, and yet you have to figure out a way to go to work and live your life, and do the things that you're supposed to do, and have your family and your relationships and stuff. And so when you're a kid, it's really easy to just delve into that stuff and not have to figure it out. But now, I mean, it's like too late. Like, we're old, you have to deal with it. And so
Uh-huh.
I find these moments when you're like alone driving in your car on the way to work, or on the way to the gym or something like that, you can connect to this emotional state that you have to repress most of the other time. And these lyrics feel like a really direct connection to that can speak to sort of an honest experience. So that's part of the reason I feel so strongly. I think our best music is when Mike is very personal with the lyrics, and I know I attach my own meanings onto them as I deliver it, to where, hopefully it should hurt to sing it the first
Right.
time, because it's so real. So that's kind of why I feel. And then also there's just a lot of cool breakdowns and stuff like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
too.
no, but
So
wow, it's interesting to hear you talk about that, because it's so true. You do in your mid, like, in your early 30s start thinking like, oh wow, that's why I did this, or like you start putting these pieces together of your life and why certain things may have happened a certain way based on, like you said, traumas or things that have happened throughout your existence. It's bizarre to like, hear you say that, because it's like something I never really thought about until you just said it, and like putting that all
Well,
kind of together, you know what I mean?
we had this like roundtable meeting before we made the record, and it was just kind of went around and said, like, what are your goals, each person, for like the record? Like, what do you want to accomplish? And the one thing I said was like, I want to be able to build a connection with people, kind of in the same way we had been doing with our song Chemical. It was
Mm-hmm.
a really rare moment. We're an aggressive band, and most of our show is like mosh pits and things like that.
Sure.
And so it is such a like contrast moment where I just started to feel this super crazy connection with the audience during that. And then people would DM me stuff and be like, that song is everything to me. And it's totally different than everything else we do. So I wanted to make sure there were some of those moments still in there where it's like, not like a break away from the heavy aggressive stuff, but just a different level of emotion that you can't really access in the aggressive sense. And so I think we did both things on it. Like, we have a new song coming out on next Tuesday that's super aggressive, but the lyrics are very, about struggle and trying to figure things out. So
Well, this will be out by then. What was, or after that point? What song are you guys going to put out? I
it's
have the track
called,
listing.
oh sweet, it's called Time. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's very it's funny because it feels fun and it's really energetic and it's really aggressive, but the lyrics are super depressing. And so there's kind of this like mental juggle that we have a lot, and that we've noticed in music that we really like, where it's like, why am I like laughing along to this really dark topic, So
Right.
it's a fun feeling like that, I guess.
Very cool. Would you say that any of the, like, did the pandemic have any effect on the record? Would you say?
Probably, yes, in sort of an indirect way, I guess, just because of that way we learned to make records during the
Mhm.
pandemic. It opened up the ability to not have to think about it just really like took away our ability to do what we wanted. And so it kind of made us more flexible, and like, that's not how you make things. You kind of just have to, I now explain it as like riding on a surfboard. Like, you're not trying to do the best, you're just trying to stay up on this thing. Because if
Mhm.
your goal is like perfection or success or any of these things, you can't guarantee those, but you can kind of try and stay up. So everything that would happen, we recorded maybe like 8 songs of drums very early on, like in last July, and something happened and we couldn't use like over half of them. And so we
Uh-huh.
just redid it,
Mhm.
whatever. Okay. We'll just redo it. So the pandemic definitely shattered that way of thinking of like, oh no, it's like, of course that would
Right.
happen. Like, every day something bad
So
happens.
different mindset. I like that. Well, that's amazing. And you have a, like I said earlier, you have a big tour coming up. What, you guys start in a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, I leave on Sunday to start rehearsing for it. So yeah, it's coming up right now.
That's exciting. And you're doing, you're playing. I'm just, like I said earlier, I'm recently moved to Nashville, so I saw you're doing a show here. I'm excited to
Yeah,
see
we'll
that.
have to kick it, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'll
that'd
be
be
cool.
great. That'd be so
Actually, the
fun.
best show on the Beartooth Tour was in Nashville at that Wild Horse Saloon or whatever
Oh
that
yeah,
place
I
is
know.
called.
Dude, that's so rad that you guys played there. I saw that. I wasn't able to come, but I have a 6-year-old, and
Oh,
he does
nice.
hip hop dance, and his like dance recital was at the Wild
Oh,
Horse
you're
Saloon.
kidding me.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And then I saw that you and I had we when we first moved to Nashville, he kind of got onto it pretty quickly, and then he did the recital. And it was there last year and this year, and then so we hadn't been to it when you guys did the Beartooth tour the second time. But I was like, is that the same? And I looked it up. I'm like, wow, like
Yeah,
They're
it's
playing the
huge in
same.
there
Yeah, it's
too.
such a
Yeah.
rad room because I always wondered, like, I wonder what they book here because I never really looked too far into it.
They
I
do a
just,
lot of like line dancing and stuff. I was talking to the guy when we were in there. So he said they do a
yeah,
lot of line dancing and
just
stuff.
I know to see your name on that bill at that venue, I was like, what? Like, how random.
I like being down in action though, because it's like all my friends that live in Nashville and that they never want to go to Broadway or anything down
Of
there. So
course,
it's kind of fun to be like, you have to come and
you
hit the
have to
honky tonks and stuff. So
exactly because it's right there off Broadway. It's a trip though too because it's on that street that got bombed.
yeah, oh, it's
So like,
crazy.
you look down the street and it's just like still like in wreckage. Yeah, it's got a
Yeah.
weird kind of vibe, but it's a cool venue for sure. That's so fun. And when I saw that you guys play there, I was like laughing just because I'm like, huh, like it's a huge room, it's a rad venue, it's super awesome. But then to see the type of show that you guys would bring there to me, just
Sure.
it's funny.
Well, it's really funny. I'm like thinking about that now and like thinking about these shows coming up. There is one thing that came out of the pandemic. It was an intentional break, like we had to stop. And I
Hmm.
think every band was kind of burnt out. It's nonstop. It's a grind. Pretty much, if you stop, you're dead. And so
Hmm.
it was nice to kind of stop that and then come back to it now. And I definitely have this now when I think about every show on a tour, we're coming to Nashville. Oh, I'm thinking about all the shows we play in Nashville. Oh, we're going to Chicago. Oh, I'm thinking about all the shows we've had. There's a euphoria with playing concerts now based on that history that I couldn't quite see right before the pandemic because I was so disillusioned to it. It's like,
Right.
oh, great, here's another show.
Another
Not that I don't
show.
like it, but now I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like a show. This is
Because
great.
it
So
was taken from everybody. Everyone was so like, what is, what's
yeah.
happening here? So
Oh,
that's,
it's
yeah.
terrible. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much, man, for taking time to hang out with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Totally. Please get in touch for Nashville and let's hang out.
Oh, I
That'd
would
be
love
awesome.
that. Yeah, that would be so much fun. I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm looking, let's see the date here. You're playing Nashville September 6th. We're gonna do it.
Sure. Perfect. Yeah, let's do
Awesome,
it.
awesome. Thank you so much, Jeremy. I have one more question before I let you go. Do you
Hmm.
have any advice for aspiring artists?
Yeah, I mean, just literally work hard. You know what your value is. Never let someone else, define that for you. I guess just stay true to what those values are, and then yeah, just work, work, work. And then one other really cool piece of advice I've been given recently is if you start employing the trash can method, which is basically write everything for the trash can. Every time you're writing a song, consider it disposable, and then you'll be really surprised about what comes out of that. You could write like 10 songs and they're so precious. And then the first time somebody hears it, they go, I don't like it. You're going to be so bummed out. And like, it's really going to hurt your feelings. If you're writing everything for the waste bin, you don't care. You're like, oh, that doesn't matter. I'll just write a new one tomorrow. You don't like that one? Okay, what don't you like about it? I'll change it until you do. So treating your creations as less precious and more disposable can actually it's kind of like meditation. When you meditate, you're supposed to let the thought come in and let it go. Let your creative ideas come in, record them, and then let them go. And then you'll be surprised which ones you come back to.